always start off on house calls with my honorable mentions. I want to say happy birthday this month to my brother Angel in San Diego, my uncle Ben up in Vallejo, who turned 91, my cousin Mary Strauss, Fred Sanchez, Master Chief Sanchez in Virginia was one of our White House valets, a former patient of mine and former Secretary of State and former Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton is celebrating her birthday this month. Herb Anderson and his wife, Marcia Anderson, are also having birthdays. My friend Casey Shaw, happy birthday. Bruce Vail, George Fuller, my classmate from med school, is celebrating. Nancy Reicher, Jerry O'Driscoll, my neighbor. Jean Donahue is turning 90. Happy birthday. My former sister-in-law and the aunt of my two sons, Liz Stone, happy birthday. Cousin Irene in Canada, happy birthday. Michael Chalmers and Lori Chalmers, who are related by marriage to my son Jason, whose wife Aaliyah enjoys having her mother as Lori, and Michael is her brother. Carlin Bushman, Dr. Dick Ridenour. Dr. Ridenour was on our show many times on house calls. Psychiatrist and former Navy Admiral. James Patrick, Erica Sterner Clifford was on our Widow's Walk talking about the challenges of losing your child. Jim Meisner, happy birthday. John Edwards, Janet Ford, Harvey Greenbaum, and his son Blake are having birthdays this month. Rhonda Snyder, Robin Bunch Burning, who knew me in Virginia and has her own health spa in North Carolina. Orville Kern, Uncle Orf, is in Colorado. Happy birthday. Mitch Clifford, another October baby. Kathy Humphreys, Doug Band, who served at the White House with me under President Clinton, Melvin Sorensen, Ingrid Wimmer, Patty DeProspero, Randy Bushman, Alan Sears. That's the major number among our birthday celebrants this month. And anniversaries, as I mentioned, Dr. Dick Ridenour this month celebrates 52 years with Leslie. And they have done our house calls before, talking about relationships and happy marriages. Bill and Hillary Clinton celebrate 49 years this month. My sister Lori and her spouse Val, 34 years together. Happy anniversary, everybody. So here we are, the month of October. And back east, it's autumn. The leaves are changing. It's cooler weather. The holidays are around the corner. We have Halloween at the end of the month. And some people might agree with a presidential election next month. Halloween this month can sort of set the mood for trick or treat, a little bit of scary times, and perhaps for some people, a sweet surprise for half the country, depending on how you vote. So somebody asked me to make a comment about the upcoming election, and I don't like being partisan. I've served 9 years at the White House, both Democrats and Republicans alike. As patients, they're all the same, with or without their suits on. They're patients. I remember one of the words of advice given to me by the White House housekeeper who had been at the White House for about 8 or 9 presidents. And I asked her one time when we were transitioning to a new president, I said, what do you do with a new president and a new first family? And she put down her dusting rag and she looks at me and says, honey, you take care of whoever lives in this house. You just do your job. And I think that was very wise of her to tell me that, because what we have is we're hiring somebody to do a job. And the media, like it or not, takes over in many ways to influence us. How do you influence people? By the information you obtain through the airwaves, through social media, through print media, through television. It's extremely powerful in terms of what message comes through. And I remember when I used to travel with the president, all 3 of them, I remember listening to the president's speech because I was there, and then reading and listening to the different newscasters and different anchors because we travel with the press pool. And a lot of times I'll say, is that what he said? I don't think he said that, because they all go through a different filter. How does that filter impact what comes into your mind, into your thinking? So here's my words of advice, my prescriptions. Number 1, your vote is important. It is your duty, your obligation to vote. Vote once, not multiple times. Just vote once. Don't take it lightly. There are people who have died, have given up their lives for your right to vote for this country. I know people want to be swayed by political ads and news and social media. Those are only suggestions or recommendations. Don't let them dictate how you decide what to do with your vote, right? When you vote, think of it as you are hiring someone to do a job. You're hiring them to run the country. You're not hiring them or picking them to come home to dinner with your kids. You're not hiring them to babysit. You're not hiring them to become a member of your family. You're hiring them to do a job. What does that job entail? You make decisions on what direction our country goes. They make decisions that impact our economics, our security, our military presence, our foreign affairs, our laws, our social structure, and how they safeguard our basic freedoms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the history of the United States in terms of the Constitution. When you vote, look at their experience, their resume, their track record. Think of where you get your information, right? Listen to their speech unfiltered. Don't want to be filtered. Don't want to filter through the media. Just listen to it. Turn off whatever media you decide. Don't let somebody make the decision for you. And think of what their outcome is of their prior, because both of the candidates have track records. Look at their track records. You might not like the candidate. One of the comments that is frequently told to me by my patients, because I have quite a few patients, is, I can't believe this is the best we can do. And I just smiled. I said, share with me why. So you may not like what we have, but this is the best we can do, guys. So this is we have, but you may not like the candidate's personality. But again, you're hiring them to do a job. Do they have the qualifications? Do they have the agenda? Do they have the proposals that fit with what you would like to see? It's all about what you want to see for our country. That's your decision. You decide. And think about policies and performance over personality. Once again, not personality, policies and performance, and then you make the decision with that. So as you prepare to vote next month, you'll probably feel some anxiety building up about whether your vote gets counted, whether the election will be fair. And at the end of that, after the votes are cast and the election is called, if your candidate wins or not, what happens next? And they'll predictably be anxiety, stress, anger. And it's that anxiety, stress, and anger that this show on House Calls is going to address to give you the antidote, which is joy, which is being positive. So how do you overcome what we're feeling now in this storm of anxiety, angst? You know, there's a hurricane over in Florida. People are suffering with that. Our hearts go out for them. There are constantly difficulties throughout the world. But in fact, how do we deal with stress? There isn't a day that doesn't go on that you have some form of stress and some form of negativity. How do you stay positive? How do you stay hopeful? How do you even achieve joyfulness? Where our guest today is somebody who will show us how. We have Heather Rausch. I'm going to call her the Doctor of Joy. I'm just going to name her the Doctor of Joy. I met Heather several years ago through many of our social events that are empowering women business owners here in Phoenix and Scottsdale. And Heather is a leader in her field. She is much accomplished in all the things she does, but she goes above and beyond that in her abilities to reach out to people and lift them up. Let me read you her brief bio. Heather Rausch is the founder and CEO of Foxfire Events and the Joyfully Centered Global Collective. And we're going to talk more about that on our show. She has a passion for uniting people, organizations, and community for the greatest good of all. You know, you should run for office. You'll often hear her say, magical things happen when we unite, as she fully believes in the power of community, collaboration, and the energy of the collective. Let us work together. Through Foxfire Events, Heather develops and hosts meaningful live and virtual programs and experiences that bring people together to enhance awareness, personal, professional growth, amplify human kindness, and ultimately encourage life experiences to be the very best they can be. She's got innovative clients who hire her to develop their programs to support what they do in their mission. She works with corporate America. She has amazing presentations. She's a captivating speaker. She's also hosts her own podcast, Joyfully Centered. I've been on her podcast before, and she's such a delight that her stories go on. I can listen to her more than she interviews me. She is a great interviewer. She's an engaged member of the International Women's Forum. She serves on the board of directors of the Arizona Forum as communications chair, membership co-chair, and is proud to serve as the president's community advisory council of Paradise Valley Community College. She lives in Arizona with her husband and her son and their dog Ranger, who's actually good energy, and who they sometimes call Godzilla due to his relentless tail. And we also believe, we just talked about the power of laughter, but she joyfully centers through engaging in life and great books and travel. Pilates keeps her fit. And she's really fit for television because I'm looking at her and she's gorgeous, but she's articulate and smart. And she's humble too. So welcome on our show.
Well, thank you, Dr. Connie. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I could really use you today because I was in clinic today. And when I do annual exams, I often will have to tell somebody some not so good news and how you counteract that. And especially end of life populations which struggle with dementia, loss of friends and family, and then all the anxiety that goes on. So there's a lot of stress of trying to fulfill, how do I serve you? How do I serve people around me? How do I be good to myself? How do you feel about all the things going on right now in our world?
Wow, there's a lot, right? There's a lot going on out there. And sometimes it is hard to manage it all, right? But what I've found that works for me is to be informed versus consumed. So I think that is so important, right? Because there's so much going on, so much that we take in on a daily basis. So really just being informed with what's happening, not getting consumed by it, so that we can really put in perspective how we can keep our joy, our happiness, and take care of ourselves.
You know, that is such a good point because I have patients who tell me that they are locked to the television nonstop. And I said, turn it off. Yeah. Just turn it off. Or they'll pick up the paper and I said, why are you doing it? It's like, this wound hurts. Let me just keep poking it.
Right.
Why don't you just stop that? Just take a break from that. So in your professional life with your clients, because you work with corporate America, do you see stress happening?
Sure. It definitely happens. You know, it is part of daily life. I think the biggest thing I know for me, when I start to feel stressed, it's because I'm not taking care of my perspective or managing my mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm allowing myself to get consumed or to get caught up in mind chatter and things like that. So that's when I see it manifest for me. When I talk to clients, that's oftentimes what's happening for them is they're not taking time to clear their energy and to really just, see where they're at with things. And so the stress just kind of piles on, and it keeps piling.
So, your husband works, your mm-hmm. son's home at do you see a lot of the stress they bring home and you experience that too?
Yeah, I do. And with that, we talk a lot about what are the things that we can actually do, what's going on, and then what are our next steps with those things. So we try really hard not to get caught up in why is this happening? But really think more, what is happening and what do we want to do with that? And how can we address the things and move forward so that we don't lose ourselves in all of that and just, sink into the stress.
One of the things that impressed me when we were talking before this is about a new division within your events, that you do event planning, that this year you call it Joyfully Centered. Can you share with our listeners about what Joyfully Centered is about?
Absolutely. Thank you. It is, it's kind of a result of everything that I was seeing happening in the world. And it's an opportunity for us to really focus on our joy and focus on our awareness and our perspective and really be mindful of that. And so I created Joyfully Centered so that we could produce programs and events that really bring that awareness to the forefront so that we as individuals, as a community, as organizations and corporations out there, we can really focus on bringing that joy and really bringing ourselves to a place of centeredness so that we can all be more successful working together.
You really should write a book about the events but tell us about your podcast and what you do with that.
So the purpose of the podcast is just casual conversations that can bring us together. And we have interesting guests like yourself who have been on there and share all kinds of information that helps us relate to one another, helps us inspire one another, because when we're just talking and having that time together, we learn a lot from each other. And it's really inspiring to hear other people's stories and their journey. We all have things we've been through. And I really believe that we can learn from one another and all be better for it. So our podcast is just an opportunity to do that. And it's really fun to do and meet different people.
One of the things you shared with me is your work with dementia and that you offer free community programs as you did with Hospice of the Valley Dementia Care. One of the things that comes to mind about dementia, and I think it was reported this year, that a risk factor for dementia is depression. So if you and I look at a lot of my patients who live way into their 90s, and there's very little dementia in some of them. And one of the features is a very positive outlook. So the more depressed you are, that's always like a warning sign. If someone's extremely depressed, are they suffering through cognitive impairment? Do they have dementia? Or which came first, dementia? But that comes hand in hand with depression and dementia. And I think a lot of what you're doing is with your joyfully centered work is to lift it. But can you share some of what the workshops with dementia, especially here in the Valley?
Sure. Well, we were so just honored and happy to be able to do that free community event at Hospice of the Valley's Dementia Care and Education Campus. And it was such a great opportunity to bring together community. There were some caregivers that were there as well in attendance. And we heard from the amazing Dr. Mary Beth Gallagher, who really shared her insight with us so that we could better understand what is happening for somebody that is living with dementia and how it really is possible to live well with dementia, because oftentimes we think, oh no, when we hear somebody in our family's been diagnosed, we think about how sad that is. And it is sad in many ways. And we also have an opportunity to find ways to be able to still just enjoy the journey with them through that. And so I love being able to bring resources to our community that allows us to have just better understanding and insight so that we do understand what's going on. And then we are able to shift our perspective and be able to live that journey alongside our loved ones.
But you went through that with your grandmother, right? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah.
How close you were to her?
Oh, man, we were best friends. My grandma, I just adore her. And the entire time, so I've grown up with her. I was very fortunate to have so much time with her. And towards the end of her life, she lived to be 94, which is amazing. And everybody would look at her and say, oh, you don't act like you're 94 and you don't look like you're 94. She was very spunky, full of life. And she was diagnosed in her 90s with early onset dementia, they said. So
that's pretty amazing.
Very amazing. Yeah. Very amazing. And one of the things that I just feel so fortunate that I had that time with her, and I took her to all of those different doctor's appointments. And I had that time with her to really understand what it was she was experiencing. And we talked a lot about what she wanted in her life, what she didn't want in her life, and how we could have that experience be as joyful as possible. So I just loved having that experience with her. And what I found is that if we all had the opportunity to better understand what our loved ones are going through, then I think it would help us be more confident in interacting with them and engaging and being able to, make it as joyful as possible. We used to laugh so much about the silliest things because we chose to.
Yeah. You really gave her a wonderful, final chapter in her life. One of the things that we bring up about spreading joy. And it's one of the things I learned from a former patient of mine, former President Bill Clinton. And you may disagree or agree with him no matter what, but watching him work a crowd and how people react, I think his gift that he taught to many people was he made you feel like you were the most important person that when you met him, he would look at you, acknowledge you, he wouldn't be distracted. And I took that into what I do with my patients. When I'm with a patient, I don't want to be distracted by the computer, the phone. I want to look at them and make them feel like you were the most important person. This contact is the most important thing. And it's amazing because people go, who, me? I said, yeah, you are the most important. And if you do that, for example, if you go to the grocery store, I look at their name, I say, well, hi, Joe, thanks. Or the person serving you, the wait staff, acknowledge them. And every single soul you interact with, make the eye contact, acknowledge them. I do this on the elevator. One of my friends does this, notorious. We get on an elevator and one of my friends will just say, hey, how are you? Is everybody having a good day? And people, because normally they look off into space, but just to acknowledge that human being and means you count. Mm-hmm. And how you treated your grandmother with such respect and kindness. And to be in her 90s, to be diagnosed with early Alzheimer's, we just anticipate there will be some form of, we call MCI, mild cognitive impairment. She lived pretty long with pretty good brain function. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the dementia aspect in patients in their 70s. And so hopefully, we'll get around that with better lifestyle and detection and medications. But I think for her, that lesson that your relationship, you gave her such a great quality of life, and you learned a lot about patients. We're going to take a quick break. Believe it or not, we're going to come back because I want to ask you more about what you do in the community, your company, because you're an entrepreneur and you're inspiring to a lot of women who want to go out there and have their own company. So stay tuned on House Calls with Dr. Connie and Heather Rausch, talking about what lifts people up through joy. So stay tuned for more. I decided we're going to give her a title, a specialty. It's Joyology. Instead of geology, she's a joyologist. And I think we should make that go viral. Okay. That you're going to specialize in joy because it's the three, joy is important.
I like it.
The verb joy.
Let's do it.
You're spreading joy. You're spreading joy in every encounter you make, everything you do. And the beauty of joy is it's self-fulfilling because the more joy you spread, the happier you get. I mean, we always think of Santa Claus as joyful. And the more joy when does Santa have an off day, right? Unless the elves do something wrong.
Right.
But he's always so jolly, right?
As far as we know, right? Absolutely.
So Santa, you're going to adopt that. But one of the things that fascinates me, because you do Joyfully Centered as your passion, and what you do full-time is your business, which I think a lot of women listeners will find fascinating, inspiring. As an entrepreneur, how do you set up your own company? How do you set up your own business? How did you get can you share about that journey, how you got to be, running your own company right now?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my whole life, I've kind of gone between working in corporate and being an entrepreneur. But I finally decided back in 2010 to embrace fully that I am an entrepreneur. So really what I did at that point in time is I sat down and made a list of everything that I love to do. And then I looked at the list and said, what kind of company would involve as many of these things as possible? And for me, that pointed to events. And then I narrowed in on business-focused events and just kind of went from there, wrote a business plan, got my LLC, and went to work and got started. So I just dove right in, but that just kind of is my personality, is to dive in and make it happen.
What was the hardest thing about all that?
I think it's really just not letting, kind of any of the fear come in, or really dispelling that, having that confidence of saying, I can do this. Because there is a voice that comes in, or there was in my head that came in and said, well, you're only one person. How are you going to do all this? And I said, well, okay, I'm going to bring in collaboration and support where I need it. And I'm determined to get it done because this is what I really want to do and what I'm passionate about.
Well, how do clients find you?
So right now, it's been a lot of word of mouth, which is fantastic. That means, people are happy, right? And so they're spreading the word, which is great. And then sometimes people will find me on social media or on my website as well through the different posts that we do or posting pictures of some of the events as well.
So what is your typical client that comes to you to sponsor an event? Well, actually to organize an event, to execute an event.
Right. It could be any group or corporation coming in that is interested in doing something great for their employees. So perhaps it's in their annual meeting. It might be a team building event, retreats. Those are always great fun, relaxation there. So really any group that's wanting to bring people together for an experience, because I really excel at building those just really fun experiences.
So can you share some of the experiences that you have created with the companies that have been successful, that people really said, my gosh, that was like the best experience we've ever had?
Yeah. So I love incorporating themes. And so one I'm thinking of that we did this year and we do each year with this particular client is their 3-day meeting. So they bring their employees all together in one place, and they do meetings where they have speakers come in on different topics, and they do some business as well. And then they have a lot of fun entertainment too. So they might do karaoke, happy hours, and fun things in the evenings. And then we'll do a theme, throughout the conference so that all of the attendees get to participate in that. And we make sure that the room, feels like that theme and everything. And then they'll do offsite activities too that I help them coordinate. And so really I take care of all of that planning so that they get to just relax and have fun. They don't have to coordinate, on the hotel with space or sleeping rooms or anything like that. I take care of all of that. And then I bring the fun factor for them.
Do you have anybody else helping you doing that?
Occasionally, I'll bring in, some volunteers or contractors to help. But otherwise, I really like to be hands-on because to me, that is part of the fun. And that really fuels me too. So
what kind of feedback do you get from your clients?
They say that it really helped to infuse energy into their event, which is fantastic, and that it made it more fun. And when they're more engaged in that way, they're more productive and open and receptive to what's being taught during the day. Even though they're having business meetings during the day, it feels more fun and it sticks and they remember it.
Especially nowadays, post-COVID, a lot of companies are having employees come back. And the challenge is after your employees know what it's like working remote, and now you're having them come back. Now we're back in the office. How do you instill the camaraderie? How do you instill, our company cares for you, want you to be happy in the workspace, or else people leave.
Right.
They find a way to do that. What kind of exercises do you have them do that, do they share? Is it almost like a therapy session, or there are games that they play to get them just working as part of a team?
Yeah, it can be a variety. It can be any of those things. And it's really dependent on what that company is looking for. Mm-hmm. So we sit down with an organization and we ask them what their goals are, what's working, where they're struggling, and we really develop something that will work for them. And we enlist the support of their leaders and teams to find out, hey, what are you guys looking for? Because you're right, trying to get people to come back in the office is not something everybody wants to do. And it does seem to feel awkward to some after we've been on our own or working from home. So to be part of a team again and having that camaraderie is very, very important. It's really a matter of getting your culture of what's actually happening within your organization to match what you say you want it to be.
So wouldn't it be great if more companies did this?
Absolutely, right?
I mean, how do you reach out to all those other companies out there who could benefit?
That's a great question. That's what we're working on is, reaching more people because we all know that energy is contagious. And when you support people, they want to support your organizations. They want to support you back, right? And so it really is investing in the people that work so hard for you. And so reaching those people that really understand that value is the biggest challenge, I think, these days. So it's really just, I think, getting the word out there and connecting with the leaders that really get that.
So you've got a big social media presence, right? Are you on Instagram, TikTok? Tell me about your social media platform?
So right now we use Facebook and LinkedIn primarily. So, and then we're looking to expand, that as well. So that's where we are right now. LinkedIn is really where I find more of our professional clients as well. So we're working to build that presence.
Do you ever go out of state, or is it primarily here and companies being people here?
Well, I love to travel, so we'll definitely go out of state.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, we've been working more in state, but we're definitely available out of state as well. And what a great thing, it's also fun to bring employees together, some location that's different than where their corporate office is, right? So that they can kind of get out of the box, as they say, and experience something a little bit different and be creative.
Now, for your clients, are they mostly techies, or what kind of industry would you say most of them are from?
All different industries,
Really?
Although I had somebody in the tech industry say that, I should really focus there because they are so focused on technology, and that people part of it is something that they could really use some support with. So that's something I'm going to really look at there. The companies I currently work with are very people focused, which is why they understand, how important that is.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a natural thing for them to adopt programs and events like this. But I would encourage any organizations out there, if you don't feel you have that right now and you really are looking to boost the human factor in there and retain and reward people, then really looking at some of these programs might be worthwhile for you.
So do they go to your website? Let's say there was a company here, a tech company, and I actually have somebody in mind for you that says, I want to do my annual retreat. Do they just go online, read it, and
absolutely,
and then are drawn to you?
Right. There's a form on there, so they can go to joyfullycenter.com or foxfireeventsrock.com, and they'll either one of those. There's forms they can fill out and reach us, and then we'll contact them and get the conversation started.
So, what is the stressful part of your job?
Everybody looks at my job and says, "Oh, it'd be so stressful, all those details and coordinating everything."
Yeah.
I love that
It's
part.
like being a wedding planner for companies, right?
Yes, but no bridezillas.
Oh.
So it's a little bit easier, I think, that way. No, but I really enjoy, bringing people together. So I don't know that there's any challenge that way. I think the biggest challenge is just for people to understand how important this really is. Oftentimes people say, oh, I can, have my admin put together an event, no problem. But it's not, everybody has a job already. And so when you add something like a big event on top of it to anybody's plate, it's not going to really be ideal for them at all. And there's so many things through experience that I know just because I've lived it and I kind of know what to look for, right? That other people might not know. So it really helps things come out more flawlessly and really to help exceed the goals.
So how do you recharge your batteries? Because I would assume you're always working. Aren't you always working?
And I'm always thinking in the future is what I learned, because I'm planning, right? So I'm always planning things. And so I was living a lot in the future. So right now, what I do is I really make sure I ground myself kind of in the now. So it's really enjoying the current moments and being conscious to that effort so that I can live in the now as well.
So how do you live in the now?
So right now, even it's just really,
We're in
taking
studio.
in, and I love this, right? So it's taking in the moments and just finding the joy in the moment rather than thinking about, okay, what's tomorrow bring, and what do I have going on for work and what's all that look like? I really just try to kind of quiet all of that and be present in the moment because every moment has something beautiful. You just have to be able to see it.
Somebody once told me, if you want to know about living in the now, watch your dog.
Yeah.
Because they live in the now. They don't necessarily fret about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next unless they're hungry, or dreading about, oh my gosh, I'm going to hold a grudge. That's a cat. Cats will usually hold a grudge. But they live in the now, and that's probably why they're so joyful in the now. And it's hard because you're trying to plan the next move, and you're all about planning. Do things happen on your events that take you totally by surprise?
Sure. I mean, there's things that come up, but I think it's a matter of how you handle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten really good at just knowing that there's going to be something that comes up, and when it does, you go, okay, well, what's next? What do I do with that? Right. Yeah. I've seen other event planners that are maybe a little bit newer to the industry that start, kind of freaking out and, or you can see them frantically running around a room. So I try to make sure that I never look frantic.
You're because smiling.
That's right.
Yeah. Don't let them see you sweat.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Because, there can be all kinds of things going on. And nobody else really knows that when you're the event planner other than you, unless you make it an issue. Yeah. So it's just a matter of being able to handle it and really focus on what are the big things, what are the things that really matter, and where you're going to choose to focus.
That's amazing, because you really put that as your perspective. Just keep rolling, rolling and keep going. That, after we talked a while ago about joy. And I looked, there was, and I don't know if you saw it, in 2022, there was a documentary in the middle of, post-COVID. And it was a film done by the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And the journalist went to interview them, and it was called Mission Joy. That was the mission. And they interviewed both men, and they filmed it, and they looked at their strategies. And and I just want to get your thoughts about, because out of this interview that was a documentary about the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu, these 4 strategies came out. Number 1 was connection in the film. And they show them laughing. Can you share about laughter and what you do?
Yeah. So laughter is so important. And I was sharing before that when I worked in corporate, I would go to the Hallmark store on my lunch break, and I would pull out all the funny cards that I could find. And I would stand there, and I probably looked crazy, right, to anybody else, because I'm standing in the aisle and I am just laughing. I'm cracking myself up. But it brought so much joy, right? So, and I thought, if other people are laughing at me because I look crazy, then that's okay. I brought them joy too. So, and I still do that. I've opened conferences that way. So I'll host conferences open to the public as well, on nourishing our spirit, mind, and body. And that's how I opened one of them one time, is just reading a bunch of funny cards. And hearing the laughter and feeling that energy was really amazing. It was a great way to open, because everybody's in a good mood when you're when you're laughing.
Right? It's got to be high. You got to lift them up. But it's true. I think it's the connectedness. If you can get people to laugh, let their guard down. The other is spiritual practice. And they talked about how both men open their hearts to joy, really through meditation and prayer. That there's something bigger and greater that unites us.
Yes.
That's above all of this.
Yes.
And do you do any spiritual retreats with them or the clients? Or
I do, yeah. And that's one part of the Nourishing Spirit, Mind, Body too, is a big part of that. And that's something we can definitely do for other clients if they really want to hone in on that. It's such a great, just peaceful part of it. And it grounds us, So I think that that's so important.
The third aspect they talk about is authenticity, that they admit there were times they were unhappy and they knew it, but they just rolled with it, and they weren't fake about it, that they said, we're going to have some tough times. I remember during COVID, I interviewed Dave Rico, and I quote him often. He wrote a book called 5 True Things. And things that we know will happen about life is unfair. There is pain in life. Not everything goes according to plan. Life, there are beginnings and endings, and not everybody you love is loyal and loving all the time. I can recite those. But what he said was, when you accept each of those 5 true givens with the answer of, instead of why me, but what's next.
Yes.
And I think you talked about that too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, it's very wise, right? Because it's when you can kind of get through that and talk about the what and look at what comes next. I mean, look, even though I'm now a joyologist,
yes,
it doesn't mean I feel joy all the time.
You're
right?
Human.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's things that come up, and then it's a matter of how I choose to handle those and what I choose to do next. And so those are the questions I ask myself, and I ask clients. We do perspective sessions with people where, we'll talk about that and just kind of help them get unstuck and in their perspective. And that's really the thing is, and to also identify what's true, what's really true in the situation, because oftentimes we have all kinds of things happening. And a lot of it is things that are happening in our head or things that we've attached to what's actually going on. So kind of getting down to what is actually true in a situation and what comes next.
What comes next is always and we always think it's going to be the worst. It's the worst thing that can happen. I think that's what they're people thinking of next month. It's one step at a time. You can't predict the future, although I have psychic friends who do, but they're never 100% correct. One of the things, and the final thing that they talk about, which I want you to talk with me about, is the fourth thing, the strategy they used about finding joy is finding meaning.
Yes.
It's meaning. I mean, what is your purpose in this life? What are you meant to do?
So my purpose is making magical connections, and that can be in many different ways. I choose to do that through programs and events. And I say magical because it's oftentimes you don't know what somebody is going to take away from something. When you bring together a room of people, you might have intention, right, through the programming of what people will take away. However, there's typically so much more that they walk away with that you never knew. So an example, I hosted a networking event with a group of women. We had a great event. And afterwards, one came to me and said, this was a while after, she came to me and said, I don't know if you know this, but I met somebody that saved my life. And I said, really? And she said, yes. They had something going on medically. They met somebody who was a medical professional and they went and saw them and they got their issue taken care of. And it literally saved their life. Yeah. And I thought, wow, how cool is that, right? Yeah. And the intent was, let's bring people together to network.
Yeah. Because in that magic, as you say, I always think there's a reason you meet people. There's a reason that you sit beside somebody in the office or in that interaction in a group that you're meant to meet everybody and contact them. And that one interaction saved somebody's life that got them out there. I think that's amazing because, you go back to meaning and they quote, how life is difficult and you find meaning through service, and which is what you're doing. And they quote Viktor Frankl, who wrote The Ascent of Man, and how even the most difficult time, there is a meaning to this. There's a meaning to, if our country is going through difficult times, what is the meaning behind that? Not being punished is we're finding the course. History changes, things alter. How do I adjust to that? How do I change to that? Can't always have everything you want. Why do hurricanes happen? Why do things happen? How do you adjust to change and how do you reset and move forward with that? And I think people struggle with moving forward and adjusting as you do whenever you do an event. It's not always going to go according to plan. You're going to pivot. You're going to move. How do we do this to our best advantage to be the best person I can be? And it's a challenge, to do that. But that's just part of life. When you recharge your batteries, are there certain people you go to or certain things you read or things that will just lift you up, give you that hit?
Yes, I very much enjoy reading. And different kinds. Sometimes I'll do things that are really going to inspire me. I love reading anything by Brené Brown.
It's very inspiring.
Yes, very, very good. And so, and then also I love reading things that are just, fun, fun things. We actually have a book club through Joyfully Centered, and we read all different things. And so that's really fun to me, is to be able to read different things that I never would have picked up before, and then have fun conversations on them. And then I also have a couple really close people in my life that I reach out to. And those are people that, I could tell anything to. And we laugh and sometimes we cry and sometimes, we just have great joy. It's really important, I think, to have those kind of people in your life that are really close. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people. It can just be, a few close people that you have. So that, and then of course, recharging. I love to spend time with my husband and my son and have any kind of family time together is great. If it involves like a beach or a swimming pool, even better.
Oh, right. You like water.
I do.
The flow.
I love
the water.
Yeah, I love the water.
Because you have to have your special way to recharge batteries, as people say, because you're always out there. Do you ever get peopled out? It was like too much,
Sure.
too many people.
Yeah, sure. Sometimes. And, those are the times where it's great to be home and, put a movie on, or if it's, the weather's nice, get out in the pool and float around.
Yeah.
So just having some activities, because, I think everybody, whether you're a people person or not, we can all use a change of pace sometimes. I also, when the weather's nice, I love to go hiking. And so oftentimes I'll go out and I'll hike by myself or sometimes with friends or family. And it's a great time to just feel nature and kind of, as you said before, feel something that's bigger than you. Know that you're one part and one person on that mountain. And it just helps you to, I think, put things into perspective.
We get through a lot of things, and I tell people, and when I try to put things in perspective, I said, do you remember what you worried about a year ago at this time? They're like, well, no. I said, it was a really big deal, because I'll have notes and I'll go, a year ago this date, when you were here in my office, this is what you were complaining about, right, as we said. I said, well, that's fine. It's over. I said, well, see, it's not the end of the world, right?
Right.
And so you have to put things in perspective. But I go back to the meaning part, because I think of my friends, who I've lost. And one of my friends, she was never made it to my show, but I would meet her every quarter. We would have lunch together. It was January of last year, and her breast cancer had returned. And she said, this is the last time we're having lunch, because I'm going to go into hospice and it's the end of the road. And I said, so tell me what's important to you. And she said that my life mattered, that I had significance. And I said, it did, because you have brought all of us up. You have given us inspiration in your strength. But I think what you do is when you make people feel so important, then you feel valued. Just that one person acknowledges you and makes you, that is a powerful tool. Another human being that you gave them your attention, your time, your comment, and made them feel special.
Yeah.
Made them feel special. Because it isn't what they said or did, it's how they made you feel.
Absolutely.
It's like politicians. How do you want to make people like you? Make them feel special. You're not the most important person in the room. They are. Your clients are, patients are, the audiences, they're the most important. And I'm hoping and praying that our listeners feel like they're the most important person, because I think, as we started the show off, I always say my hope and prayer is at least one person will hear this podcast, will hear my voice and yours and say, Heather had those great points about what she's done in Joyfully Centered and things she does. Because, it's more than your business. I mean, you have your office, you do what you do. I have my practice, but my podcast, just like your podcast and your program, are from your heart. You pay for that. Nobody pays you to do that, but you do it because you give. It's in the giving. And I can see you're smiling because you love it. You love it.
Well, and it's just so joyful to be able to uplift and inspire and support. And you do that so much through everything that you do. So thank you for all you do.
That's how I make people like you. We meet each other at these events. I already have several people in mind for you to do these events, but I can't believe, I told you the hour is pretty quick.
Wow.
So we're almost the end of our time. Any final words to the audience?
So, I think just, go out there and be joyful. And again, choose it. Right?
Yeah,
it's a perspective. So choose to nurture that within yourself. And when you're struggling on a tough day or anything like that, reach out, to your collaboration and your support out there, or move your body, get yourself out of, that space that you might be in so that you can get to a joyfully centered space.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for your words of wisdom, and hope you listen to that, everybody. And thanks for tuning in on House Calls with Dr. Connie and Heather Rausch. Have a great rest of the month. Take care and God bless.